I feel sorry for the people of Poland. You know, you've got Germany one side, Russia the other. They've suffered so... Oh, it's a different kind of poll. I'm so sorry. David Coletto, CEO of Abacus Data. He's our guy. He knows everything. I think he probably knows too much, because we were chatting before the show, and I said, who is going to win? And don't grimace too much, but you really think it is? The polls are saying Obama.
Look, you know, you only, as a pollster, I have to go by the numbers,
yeah.
right? There's emotion in politics, but I strictly go by the numbers, and it just looks like Obama has the advantage, that those odds makers, like Nate Silver and such, give him overwhelming odds just because he's ahead in so many states.
Really?
If you believe the polls to be true. And I kind of have to at this point.
Well, and you know the ones that are to believe and those that are not to be believed, because there are people on the right saying, no, when you unpack and unravel and unwrap the polls, actually, it's all spin, and they're really saying that Romney's going to win.
Well, I mean, keep this in mind. When a pollster calls somebody and they ask you, you know, who are you voting for? What's the likelihood you're going to vote? You do kind of rely on that person telling you the truth,
yeah,
and that person actually showing up to vote. So on the one hand, they may be accurately capturing intent.
Yeah.
The question is, tomorrow, whether people come out and vote. And I think in Romney's case, sort of the last vestige of hope, I think, for him is that all those key groups that are generally less reliable voters, young people, African Americans and Hispanics, who are fundamental to Obama's coalition, don't show up in the same numbers that they did in 2008. That's the critical question I'm looking at. If they do, it's going to be a good night for Barack Obama. If they don't, Mitt Romney can win the election.
You wonder sometimes about the future of the country, because those demographics indicate the groups that are visceral supporters of Barack Obama, of the Democrats, are getting larger, and those who are naturally Republican are declining.
On a pure demographic basis, since 1992, the percentage of non-white voters has consistently grown in the United States. Yeah. And I think this may be the last election that the Republican Party can get away with losing 95% of African American voters and losing 2/3 of Hispanics, simply because white voters aren't growing as fast as these other groups. And so simple demographics tells you that, you know, if they continue to vote en masse for one party, that the party on the outs is going to have to either find a new way to connect with those voters. Maybe it's on social issues, to Catholic Hispanics and evangelical African Americans. There's opportunities there that the party hasn't reached out, I think. But on economic issues, those voters are firmly in the Democratic
Let's talk about that, because not so much with Hispanics, but look, Obama will get the vast bulk of the black vote. But there are many people saying it won't be to the same extent as last time, which I can fully understand, because last time was incredibly symbolic to have a black president. If he only gets, say, 85% of the black vote, 75% of the black vote, and there's quite a lot of indifference and non-voting, that could be enough to turn it to Romney.
I don't think it's a question of the percentage of blacks who vote for Obama. It's what you said last. Do they come out to the polls? There was extreme excitement in 2008 for you know, potentially the first black president. This time around, there's certainly excitement. There's certainly, I think, a lot of people want to defend that achievement. But on the other hand, there's a lot of disappointment that unemployment among African Americans is higher than any other group, and they still remain well back on so many economic figures than everybody else.
If he had been a white president, in particular a white Republican, he'd be accused of racism at this point. Not that he is, of course, but because he's done so little for the black community. Nixon did more for the black community. Ford did more. Eisenhower certainly did in terms of civil rights, and I think Clinton did quite a lot. I think Clinton actually probably had more empathy with the black community than Barack Obama does, frankly. But he hasn't done very much, and yet he'll still get that vote because of his skin color. Well, that's not a good thing.
Well, look at what he said this weekend. A vote is your best revenge, right? That is a rhetoric speaking directly to, I think, that constituency who say, because he's basically saying, it's not my fault. You need to blame the Republican Congress who blocked me all along the way. And the revenge that you as a black, Hispanic, young voter can inflict on those Republicans is by reelecting me. And so it is divisive. It's certainly at no point, I think, in American history have groups been as divided as they are when it comes to their vote intention. And I think that's troubling for whoever wins the election, whether it is Mitt Romney or not. And I think, you know, Barack Obama is not taking the high road. He's in fact using certain language to try to divide that further.
Well, it's seldom taking the high road. There's also a lot of talk that if Romney wins, particularly if it's a narrow victory, and that I suspect will be the only victory he could have, then there will be rioting. I've heard from several people, not all conservatives, by the way, in the United States, friends who've said if Romney wins, there will be genuine trouble in this country within the next few days.
Well, yeah, you have to keep in mind that in certain states, they've introduced new voter ID laws, right, in Pennsylvania and elsewhere, that I think some people, particularly leaders in those communities, believe are ways of suppressing their vote. And if they feel that the election was so close that may have caused Obama to lose, that that may incite them to sort of take to the streets and maybe turn to violence.
They'll claim it's conspiracy and big money and business and corporations and democracy's being destroyed, which of course is a complete bunch of nonsense, but they'll believe it.
I think, and on the flip side, I think if Barack Obama does get reelected, there may be some on the right who say, you know, Mitt Romney was just simply the wrong candidate, and there may be more soul searching within the Republican Party. I don't believe, though, that Tea Partiers are going to, you know, go violent or hit the streets. But
no.
But it could be a conspiracy. But you can see the way that certain elites in these different groups. You know, you know, if you ever watched, you probably don't, the Reverend Sharpton show on MSNBC. It's
Oddly
all
enough,
about,
I seldom do.
Yeah, it's all about, he's trying to inflict this idea that if the outcome isn't as they hope, that it's somehow unfair or unjust. And whether it's right or wrong, and I'm not going to impart my judgment on it, I think, yeah, there's public opinion is sort of so divided there that it could incite something.
Well, the only time I ever see that show, the only time I ever see that station is when I'm in a hotel in the US, which is a fair amount of time, and you watch that, and then you watch Fox News, and you realize that Fox News is about 25 times all that MSNBC does is react to Fox News all the time. So, but we will see what will happen. It's going to be fascinating, and we'll be covering it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael.